All right, we are live. Happy Thursday, everybody. Happy Backdrop Day. Every Thursday's Backdrop Day here. um, let's see. It is the end of June, nearing the end of June here. So what we're doing is we're working on Backdrop CMS, which is an open source content management system that will be intended specifically for nonprofits and small to medium-sized businesses, people who want a full-featured content management system for without too high a cost in terms of maintenance and hosting and all of the other stuff that goes along with the hidden costs of a website. We're trying to create a set of features that is comparable to that's in Drupal 8, and maybe we won't get there right out of the gate, but that's our long-term goal. But we're trying to keep the architecture more similar to that of Drupal 7. So any existing Drupal developer should be able to work on Backdrop very easily without needing to make a huge time investment in learning anything new. Modules should be able to be ported from Drupal to Backdrop really easily, and hopefully that'll make it really easy for a community to grow up around Backdrop really quickly. We are trying to fix bugs that exist in current versions of Drupal, so both Drupal 7 and Drupal 8. And of course, any bugs that we've found on our own, we'll fix those as well. We're also going to be simplifying existing systems when possible. So if there are things that were too complicated in Drupal 7, we want to clean those up and make them easier to use and understand in Backdrop. We'll try and do that. And we're going to add new features as long as all of these things don't require changing the APIs very much. So in order to stick to our goal of making it really easy to get to Backdrop from Drupal 7, we're going to keep change to a minimum. Our timeline for Backdrop, we're going to be hoping to release Backdrop 1.0.0 this summer. So right now it's kind of the middle, nearing the end of June. We're thinking this will probably be released in July. I think we should probably choose a date and put that down sometime soon. So maybe Nate, when we get closer to the end of this blocks and layouts thing, we'll know when that date would be, and then we'll try and figure out what needs to get in before the date and what we can do afterwards.
Yeah, we've got a couple of things that we absolutely need to complete before we release. Like, we can't release in our current state with CMI. Like, we've only got a couple of things converted. Like, we've got views converted, and we've got image styles converted, and a lot of variables converted, but we don't have like fields converted, and there's no way we can release without that being in place. Blocks and layouts is definitely the most questionable feature, like if that'll actually happen or not. I've got some updates on that for later, but yeah, we really just need to make sure that we get. I mean, we can't release Backdrop with its APIs in the current state. We need to get all of it completely converted for CMI, and that's the one really big holdup.
Okay. So maybe I know we're really close on the Drupal 7 conversion stuff. If I can get those done, I can start working on CMI conversions. I think it would also be good to try and get more hands on it. I know we've got contact module converted to CMI. Maybe we can get some other people working on some other stuff too. Well, we'll see. I don't know if you think we could get Andy doing some of that. We'll figure it out. We'll try and redistribute work a little bit now that we're ending some of this other stuff. Oh, we also have so one of the Backdrop interns who worked for us in May is going to be coming back starting July 1st. He might be a good one to put on some of those too. If we can find some easy ones in the beginning and walk him through those, he'd be good to kind of take over the rest of them. Maybe don't give him fields first, but.
Yeah, anyway, for anyone interested in working on that issue, the meta issue is number 170, and that lists all of the. Oh wait, these are all of the variables. Hang on, there's another meta that's above that one. 169. There we go. Okay, so issue 169 is the overall all of the things that need to be converted to CMI, and we've still got quite a few of those to tackle.
Okay. But then after we kind of get a grasp on that, we should maybe set a release date. This is obviously, these conversions are a release blocker, but it would be good to figure out when that could be. Like if we need to start saying August instead of July, that would be good. That's still summer. All right. And then after we get the 1.0.0 release out, we are going to keep releasing frequently. So the reason that we're not pushing to add a whole ton of new features right now is because things like adding link module to core can happen after we release. We can add features as long as it doesn't require changing APIs. We can do that much later. API additions are fine, just not changing existing APIs. So right now we're just working on trying to get the biggest things in, like CMI conversions, and then we'll be able to add new stuff after the fact. So in terms of our progress report, you just heard a little bit about our config management status, which is probably the most important thing. But we have some major news from last week is that we have mostly resolved Backdrop's identity crisis. So the problem we've been having for the last 9 months, where you install Backdrop and it says installing Drupal, has now finally been replaced. We took our beautiful new logos from Darius and put those in, so when you're running the installer, you don't see the Drupal drop anymore. You now see the Backdrop square. And all of the code, well, most of the code that said Drupal in function names, for example, is now been converted to say Backdrop. And Nate, you committed that patch earlier this week, over the weekend. Yep. Do you want to say anything about how happy you are that that's done?
It's pretty great. Like it definitely feels different now as you install or as you complete, because I mean, we've already got like our differentiator in admin menu, and now we've got the logo in the admin menu, so it looks really good. Let's see. Yeah, we've removed all Drupal We've removed Drupal underscores in the code base, Drupal in the class names.
Powered by Drupal is now powered by Backdrop CMS.
Yeah, so it's pretty well Backdrop everywhere. There are a couple places where we still have Drupal, mostly in links to Drupal.org. That's about the only thing that is remaining. But most of those even are just in like doc blocks and in code comments. So front-facing wise, there's very, very, very little left that says Drupal, which is a good improvement. We've still got some pieces that are missing, of course. We don't have like a locale server, and we don't have an update server yet. So doing things like downloading a Backdrop language pack isn't possible yet. But yeah, when we set up the sites to do that, I mean, switching the code over is not a problem.
That's pretty exciting. I'm super excited about it because now we're not going to have that problem where we are onboarding new people and they go, oh, I was installing Backdrop, but it said Drupal. And we're like, yeah, we know. Well, now it's actually Backdrop, and it feels like something different, which is really
cool. And it's also nice that writing new code, you can use all of the function names. Like previously, it was really crazy how we had new functions were named Backdrop underscore, but old functions were still Drupal underscore. Now everything's just Backdrop underscore for everything. We also added, I mean, the compatibility layer took on a much bigger role when we did that conversion. You can still call all of the Drupal functions, all of the Drupal class names, all of the methods that had the name Drupal in them, as long as the compatibility layer is turned on, which it is by default in settings.php. So everything still works. Like even the JavaScript still works if you use the word Drupal instead of Backdrop. Again, that's to help facilitate for the easy migration from Drupal 7 to Backdrop. Like converting something is really pretty trivial. But as we move forward to like Backdrop 2, the compatibility layer will get taken out. But for now, you can still use Drupal everywhere, but you shouldn't. It'll just be Backdrop everywhere for consistency.
If you're writing a new module, call it Backdrop. If you're dropping in a Drupal module, it'll still work even if it says Drupal.
Well, if you're dropping in a Drupal module, you still need to do some conversion.
Right. Those functions will still work, not
but the functions will still work.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's great. So that was a major release blocker that we've knocked out. So that makes me feel much better about what's left to be done before we can release, which is good. Other things we talked about briefly, blocks and layouts. Nate is back on the trail of blocks and layouts. Do you want to give us an update on how that's going?
Yeah, it's coming along. So I've pushed up my branch changes. So if you're following along issue 86 for blocks and layouts, our branch currently has been updated with the latest code that has layouts. You can, of course, there's a layout module. You can add a new layout. It automatically creates a menu item. You can configure that layout and add contexts now, or yes, you can add context, and you can add conditions, which is like selection criteria in panels land. And it's working really pretty well. It actually does make pages right now, so you can actually create a new layout page, and it'll show up in the menu system. But the actual configuration of the layout, like placing blocks, is not actually. There's no interface for that yet.
We have
so,
pages.
Yeah. So it basically says this page will be a layout, and it has context, which I guess, and it has selection criteria.
Smart pages. That's already smarter than Drupal has ever had before, right? They've got dumb pages. We've got smart pages.
Yeah. So it's a start, but we've still got a long ways to go. Like the entire interface for placing blocks also involves like setting all of the selection criteria on each individual block, or whatever the panel's term is for, access rules, or whatever it is for showing a block or hiding a block. And there's a lot to do, but it's coming along. Timeline-wise, yeah, I'm still really nervous about getting this done, before the end of next month. So we'll see how everything else is coming along. And whether or not we can trim down functionality, because it would be better in my mind to get a layout module that has at least the capabilities of blocks, which isn't very much, and get blocks replaced with like a bare bones layout module so that we can improve and iterate on it after release, as opposed to needing to be stuck with blocks and regions for the entire 1.0 cycle.
Yeah, I think that's definitely realistic. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in like panels in the layout configuration that is completely unnecessary for the 80%, right? Like selection criteria configurations for individual blocks can come somewhere else. They don't have to come in that configuration. And things like adding styles and all of that, it's nice to have that, but it's completely unnecessary. And I think like just a layout where you choose a layout and put blocks into the layout is all we really need. And as long as we can get that much done, I think we can ship. And we can add any of that other stuff later too, especially if it just involves like altering forms and adding in new config files. So I think that sounds like a good plan. Other stuff we're working on, we've got a release blocker in here, which is views in core, and we actually have the core of views in core. There are a bunch of views themselves that are not yet in core. They're currently the listings that Drupal 7 had, and those need to be converted. And there are some administration listings that need matching actions created for the equivalent of VBO. So I don't necessarily think all of that needs to be a release blocker. I think we should kind of prioritize and say, these 10 are release blockers and these 4 are fine if we don't get to them. And then we can figure out where our priorities should be. So that's also something that's on our list that we want to get done before we release, but not all of it is preventing the release. We definitely need help with those conversions. So if anyone wants to jump in on converting views, that's a good place to start. The issue number there is number 151. In config management, I think we've already talked about probably enough, but we have a version of CMI in Backdrop, and it needs more conversions. And that issue, one more time, is 169. Another thing that we're working on is trying to keep up with all of the progress that's going on in Drupal, and particularly in Drupal 7. So any commits that have been made to Drupal 7, we need to include as well. We currently have 2 meta issues open, but we are closing in on getting both of those done. We've had a bunch of progress since last week on both of those. And then we have the security issues that are currently open against Drupal 7, and we've got 2 of those remaining. One of them we have a solution for. The other one, I'm not sure that the most recent one we've actually looked at it yet, but there's only 2 left before we need to release, so I think that's fine. And then we've got a bunch of backports of stuff that's going on in Drupal 8 that we also want to do in Backdrop. So all the conversions to HTML5, most of those are in. We're more than halfway through the list of all of the conversions. I'm not sure we need all of the conversions. There's some of them that after they introduced in Drupal 8 caused a bunch of problems, so we're kind of on hold on those. But all the important ones and easy ones are in, which is great. And then we've just got the rest of them that we're tracking. So those aren't release blockers. It's just kind of progress we're making towards improving Backdrop. There's also a bunch of CSS cleanup that's been done in Drupal 8, like standardizing on file names, standardizing on the way that you identify right to left with a selector rather than a separate style sheet that gets added. Just some cleanup stuff like that that was generally a really good idea done in Drupal 8 that we want to do the same thing in Backdrop. We went through most of those issues, and it looks like more than half of those are in, which is really good. And then for JavaScript, similarly, we went and ran JS hint on all of the JavaScript files in core, and most of those have been cleaned up as well. So we are kind of nearing the end of improvements there. There's a couple left that are probably pretty easy to just go ahead and do if anyone wants, has 5 minutes free, wants to send us a pull request. But again, we're now at the point where none of those are release blockers. I think we're in pretty good shape in terms of CSS and JavaScript cleanup and HTML5 elements. So, easy low picking, but nothing there that's going to prevent us from releasing, which is awesome. And then we've got some other small projects we're working on too. So in continuing the vein of trying to separate our identity from Drupal, we're trying to make the administrative theme look a little bit different. We have a style guide for our website, and we're going to try and create a style guide for the admin theme too that can, if it wants to, use some of those same elements. So fonts and colors and stuff can be recycled if we want to do that. I know Julia spent some time working on a first draft of that. I looked a little bit at her version of the code, but I couldn't actually see the changes, I don't think, because they were on a different branch, and I wasn't sure how to make the code she'd written actually apply to the style guide. So I'll check in with her and see if she can tell me how to do that. But there is a whole bunch of progress under that in terms of our rebranding as well. And we're probably also going to need that same kind of rebranding on the installer page too. But it already looks 100% better with just the different logo on it. We've got some user experience improvements underway as well. So we'd like to add a rich text editor in core. We have an idea and a plan on how to do that. The issue for that is 101. We just need someone to actually do it. So if anyone is particularly interested in making sure that Backdrop gets rich text, that would be the place to go. And we've got some terminology updates to kind of help people navigate a little bit. We did introduce one last week already. We cleaned up the people section of the menu. So we moved user roles. It used to be underneath permissions. It's now by itself. And we did some cleanup on, so this is now all in the config section because this is configuration. We did some cleanup on how the people config section works too. So hopefully it'll be a little bit more intuitive for people rather than just kind of sticking that stuff like out in the middle of the people section where you're managing people, which I think will be good. We've got theme system cleanup underway as well. We've got a whole bunch of consolidation in proper use of theme hook suggestions that has already gotten moved in. We've got a bunch more. There's a couple of major things that need to happen for the theme system, like the addition of the new hook that needs to happen before we release, and then removal of the process layer that are both going to be a little tricky. But everything else, I think, is just improvements that we could ship without if we had to. There's already a lot of progress that's making it better. So we can just, it's a good place to jump in if you want to jump in, but it's not as important as CMI conversions. And then let's see. So I think that's it in terms of our minor projects that we're working on. There's obviously a whole bunch of other issues in the queue that we don't talk about in this meeting because they're less important than these ones. But if there's anything that you really want to see happen in Backdrop, just create an issue, and we can figure out if it's super important and needs to be part of a meta or come into this issue or whatever. But we kind of have our priorities and a lot of work ahead of us. So we're working on right now. We have a section in this weekly meeting to have updates from the PMC. We don't have any updates. It's just kind of business as usual. Write as much code as you can, run a bunch of tests, that kind of thing. I think we are looking to expand the PMC, so I say this every week too. If you're involved in Backdrop and active in the issue queue or active in this meeting, if you're not an issue queue type person, we do have our eyes open for new people who might be good potential candidates for that. In terms of things that we're working on that is not directly related to the code of the project, we need an API website, we need an update server, we need a GitHub service, and these are all things that I think are going to be really important for us to get out before or immediately after Backdrop 1 is released, because if we want to have people trying to use this thing, they're going to need to know, how do I port a module? In order to port a module, they're going to need an API site with change notices on it. They're going to need to know what modules have already been ported. And in order to do that, they're going to need a website that they can go to find them, or a GitHub service that will register them so that we can find them through GitHub if we don't have a web page yet. So we're just going to need a little bit more help in order to get the community using Backdrop, rather than just those of us who already know how things work. So I think getting those done would be great. I know we've got some start underway on a couple of these things, but we don't have anything done yet. So if anyone wants to help with those, we can use that as well. And we obviously have some more plans for our primary website. We're going to convert it to Backdrop. We're also going to add some pages for a showcase. Once we have some other websites running Backdrop, we're going to set up modules and themes pages, maybe a way for people to register themselves as Backdrop businesses or people who will build websites on Backdrop if clients are interested in that. So we've got some long-term plans for the website, but those are obviously lower priority than getting the product done. So that's kind of where we are with those. And then we have sprints every Thursday after this weekly meeting. Last week, Nate and I had to run off on Thursday and run an errand. So we did Backdrop Day on Saturday instead, which actually ended up working out really well. There was no phone calls or emails to disrupt us, so we just went ahead and cranked through a whole bunch of pull requests, and Nate committed everything, which is amazing. So we got a bunch done that way. So I'm hoping that we can get equally as much done today. We'll see how that goes. And then next week, actually, I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to be in Canada. I'm going to be out of the country in our fair northern neighbor. But Nate, do you want to try and run this meeting next week?
Yep, I can do that.
Okay. So Nate will be in charge of the meeting. I'll set up the agenda and everything and try and make it as easy as possible on you. But that would be great if you could do that. And then we've got 2 camps coming up where we're doing Backdrop keynotes, DrupalCorn in Iowa and Twin Cities Drupal Camp in Minneapolis. So I think that'll be really fun. We can kind of, it's been a while since we've been out in the Drupal community since we missed DrupalCon Austin. But it'll be good to go talk to people and show everyone, what's going on now. Like, it's been a while since a lot of people have seen Backdrop, and to have its new logo and its new name and add menu and core and a whole bunch of other neat stuff. I think it'll be fun to be like, look, it's better than Drupal 7. Ta-da! And kind of start to show like a little bit more of the future rather than what they've already been seeing. So that's super exciting. Is there anything else that we should add to this weekly agenda, or anything else that anyone wants to bring up or talk about while we're here?
Negative.
Negatory. All right. Well, it looks like we've got 6 viewers today. That's a great number. So hi, people. Thank you for watching. We're going to go ahead and hang out in IRC, I guess, for the rest of the afternoon. So if anyone who is watching the video has questions for us, you can also hop in over there and ask. Otherwise, we will do this again next week.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Happy Thursday.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye.